The dawn was just breaking in Chicago as Sarah Phillips, a dedicated flight attendant for Global Skies Airlines, started her day. With an unwavering commitment to her profession, she worked tirelessly to prepare for another international flight. As she slid into her uniform, she paused to admire the elegant attire, its sharp lines, and bold colors, a symbol of pride and responsibility. Sarah's past was marked by humble beginnings, growing up in a modest neighborhood with her single mother. Their world was far from the glitz and glamour of aviation, but her mother, a waitress, had taught her the value of hard work and dedication. She remembered the nights she had spent dreaming of the world beyond her small window, the days she spent studying diligently for a scholarship that led her to flight school, and the many sacrifices she had made to reach her current position. As she boarded the plane that morning, Sarah took a moment to breathe in the familiar scent of the cabin, a mixture of new upholstery and fresh coffee. Her world was this airplane cabin, familiar, comfortable, yet filled with endless possibilities. Sarah's immediate goal was clear in her mind, a promotion to the position of head attendant. To reach that goal, she knew she had to make her flight the epitome of order and efficiency. No deviation from rules could be allowed. The scent of hot coffee brewing mixed with the fresh linen from the cabin's first-class section was intoxicating, but it didn't distract Sarah from her mission. As the passengers started boarding, Sarah greeted each one with a professional smile. She encountered passengers from all walks of life, the nervous first-time flyer, the seasoned business traveler, the excited family going on a vacation, and the elderly couple celebrating their golden wedding anniversary in Paris. Among the passengers was an elderly woman, Miss Harriet Sullivan. Dressed simply, with her white hair neatly pulled back into a bun and wearing an old yet elegant watch, she looked no different from the rest of the economy class passengers. Yet, there was a quiet dignity about her, a grace in her movements that caught Sarah's attention. Sarah guided Miss Sullivan to her economy seat, gently helping her stow her small carry-on bag in the overhead compartment. As she secured the bag and turned to leave, she noticed Miss Sullivan studying the business class curtain with an unreadable expression. Sarah paused, but seeing no question or request on the elderly woman's face, she moved on, preparing to tackle the task ahead. As the plane ascended, the skyline of Chicago faded into the distance. Sarah began her service, moving with practiced ease through the cabin, the small turbulence no match for her poise and balance. While her thoughts lingered on the conversations with her superiors about her potential promotion, she remained focused on her task, ensuring each passenger had a comfortable flight. As Sarah ended her first round of service, her eyes fell on Miss Sullivan again, her gaze still directed towards the business class. Unbothered, Sarah reminded herself of her mission to uphold the rules and standards, for her passengers, for Global Skies, and most importantly, for herself. The plane hummed in the background as Sarah prepped for her next round, unaware of the turn her routine flight would soon take. As the story unfolds, a series of events is about to challenge her commitment to her rules and push her to rethink her values. Every chapter in Sarah's life so far had prepared her for a journey of growth and self-realization, unbeknownst to her. The plane soared high in the sky, a mere dot in the vast azure, carrying within it a story of humility and respect, ready to unravel in the chapters to come. On the bustling plane, Sarah felt the steady thrum of engines below her feet. Her heart pounded in rhythm, fueled by the same determination that had propelled her from her humble beginnings to the uniform she wore with pride. In the hustle and bustle of cabin service, Sarah excelled. Her maneuvers through the narrow aisle were practiced and fluid, trays balanced with graceful agility. She responded to passengers' needs with professionalism and charm. She was a portrait of diligence, her devotion to her work mirrored in her meticulous actions. As she moved through the plane, Sarah's eyes frequently returned to Miss Sullivan. The elderly woman sat quietly, her serene demeanor unchanged. An inexplicable bond seemed to pull Sarah towards her, even amidst her busy routine. She saw in Miss Sullivan a kindred spirit, a woman who, like her, had seen her fair share of life's trials and had emerged stronger. The flight from Chicago to Paris was a long one, providing Sarah with ample time to demonstrate her dedication. While her colleagues took short breaks, Sarah persisted, her eyes on the coveted promotion. As head attendant, she imagined leading her team with precision and grace, setting an example for all others in global skies. In her quest for the promotion, Sarah upheld the airline's rules with an iron hand. She would often remind her passengers of their restrictions politely but firmly, her professionalism unyielding. She believed that an orderly flight was a smooth flight, and for the plane to be orderly, rules must be respected. Her stringent adherence to the rules often led to some disgruntled passengers, but she stood firm. The young couple trying to sneak into the extra legroom seats were gently but firmly redirected. The business executive trying to secure an extra mini bottle of wine was denied with a polite smile. Sarah considered these small victories in her quest to make her flight the epitome of excellence. Each successful enforcement brought her closer to her goal, the promotion she so dearly wanted. When she saw Miss Sullivan slowly rise from her seat and start walking towards the business class, Sarah was faced with a choice. The elderly woman did not look like one to break rules. Her calm demeanor and the grace in her actions suggested a woman of principles. Yet, as a flight attendant dedicated to upholding the rules, Sarah knew she had to intervene. With a deep breath, Sarah moved towards Miss Sullivan. She was poised on the precipice of a decision that would steer the course of her flight and, unbeknownst to her, her life. This long-haul flight, Sarah mused, was a microcosm of her own life. The passengers represented the diverse paths of life she could take, their interactions a reflection of the decisions she could make. She was determined to keep her plane in order, her decisions geared towards achieving her dream. Just like the plane she was on, Sarah was also on a journey, soaring above the clouds, looking down at the world below. Little did she know that her journey was not just about traversing the physical distance between two cities. It was about the distance between who she was and who she could become. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, they say. For Sarah, that step was her interaction with Miss Sullivan. As she prepared to enforce her rule, she was unknowingly embarking on a path that would challenge her beliefs and reshape her understanding of the world. Each passing moment on that plane was leading to a transformation. The dawn was breaking outside, and a similar dawn was preparing to break inside Sarah Phillips, the diligent flight attendant of Global Skies Airlines. The upcoming turbulence was not in the skies but within the confines of the plane, ready to unfold in the chapters to come. The plane hummed along its invisible path, high above the ocean, oblivious to the unfolding drama within its belly. Sarah approached Miss Sullivan, her determination armored against any potential backlash. She had faced irate passengers before, handled them with poise and grace. She was prepared to do so again. "Miss Sullivan," Sarah began, her voice steady, "I'm afraid you can't proceed to the business class section without a valid ticket. Please return to your seat." Miss Sullivan turned, her gaze steady. There was no defiance in her eyes, just a calm acceptance. "I understand, dear," she said softly, returning to her seat without further protest. Sarah felt a pang of guilt but quickly dismissed it. She was merely doing her job. Rules were rules, regardless of the person involved. But as she returned to her duties, she found her thoughts returning to Miss Sullivan. Her calm acceptance of the situation, devoid of any resentment or defiance, was intriguing. Meanwhile, the plane flew on, the miles unspooling beneath its wings. The world outside was shrouded in the darkness of the night, but inside, the cabin lights shone brightly, mirroring Sarah's resolve. Her interaction with Miss Sullivan seemed to add a new dimension to her duties. Sarah began to notice small details she had previously overlooked: the subtle discomfort of a passenger, the faint lines of fatigue on another's face, the forced smiles of some trying to keep their fears at bay. It was as if her senses had been heightened, her understanding deepened. Yet, amid these realizations, Sarah held onto her principles, her unwavering commitment to the rules guiding her actions. Her path to the promotion seemed clear, her goal within reach. She continued to serve her passengers with the same diligence, the same grace. However, her encounter with Ms. Sullivan had subtly shifted something within her. Unbeknownst to Sarah, the seeds of change had been sown. A couple of hours into the flight, the purser summoned Sarah to the business class cabin. Curious but focused, Sarah made her way to the front of the plane. Her heart pounded in her chest, echoing the steady thrum of the engines. Was this the moment she had been waiting for? Was her dedication about to be rewarded? Standing there in the luxurious cabin was Ms. Sullivan, flanked by two gentlemen. Their sharp suits contrasted with Ms. Sullivan's simple attire. But it was the purser's next words that took Sarah by surprise. "Sarah, I'd like you to meet Mr. John and Mr. Henry Sullivan, the majority stakeholders of Global Skies Airlines. And their aunt, Miss Harriet Sullivan." The news hit Sarah like a lightning bolt, her heart pounded in her chest. The realization swept over her: she had denied the relative of the airline's owners access to the business class. The promotion she had been dreaming about seemed to be slipping away from her. As she stood there, frozen in surprise and embarrassment, Sarah couldn't help but marvel at the turn of events. The flight she had started with so many hopes seemed to be taking an unexpected turn. Her world, just like the plane, was on a turbulent path, tossed by the unexpected revelations. But amidst the swirling emotions, there was a glimmer of understanding. The ordeal was not just about her promotion or upholding the rules. It was a lesson in humility, in understanding that things were not always as they appeared. It was about realizing that beneath the veneer of regulations, there was room for empathy, for kindness. As the plane continued on its path, Sarah was embarking on a journey of her own. An unexpected encounter had led her to crossroads, challenging her beliefs, her principles. Unbeknownst to her, the turbulence was not just on the plane, but within her, stirring a transformation that would resonate through the rest of her journey. Sarah's world spun. The sounds of the plane seemed distant, muffled by the pounding in her ears. The pristine, organized world of her cabin service was suddenly tainted with an unprecedented twist. But as the shock began to fade, something else took its place. An odd sense of calm filled Sarah. She had made a mistake, one that might cost her dearly, but it was a mistake nonetheless. And mistakes, she knew, were part of the human experience. They were opportunities for growth, for learning. And Sarah was nothing if not a quick learner. Mr. John Sullivan broke the silence. "Sarah, we understand that you are only following the rules. It's commendable. But perhaps there's something more important than the rules. Empathy and respect towards our passengers." His words rang in Sarah's ears. The promotion she'd been working tirelessly towards suddenly seemed trivial. There was a larger lesson to be learned, one about kindness and understanding. In the subsequent hours, Sarah's dedication to her job took on a new form. She no longer saw her passengers as mere responsibilities but as individuals, each with their own stories, their own struggles. She engaged in conversations, listened more intently, and, most importantly, began to empathize. A previously overlooked smile of gratitude from an elderly passenger or a sigh of relief from a mother tending to her child took on new significance. These were no longer just passengers on her flight, they were fellow humans sharing their journey with her. Meanwhile, Ms. Sullivan became a constant source of inspiration. Despite the embarrassment, she carried herself with grace, treating everyone around her with genuine kindness. She shared stories of her life, each tale a testament to her resilience and wisdom. While the plane moved steadily across the night sky, Sarah found herself navigating through her own journey of self-discovery. She had taken this flight countless times before, but never had the journey been so transformative. It was during these hours, amid the hum of the engines and the hushed conversations, that Sarah understood the essence of her job. She was not merely a flight attendant enforcing the rules, she was a custodian of comfort and care, creating a memorable journey for her passengers. As the first light of dawn peeked through the window, Sarah realized her perspective on service had undergone a radical shift. She still had rules to follow, but they no longer defined her actions. Instead, they were guided by understanding, by empathy. Her role as a flight attendant had evolved, just as she had. The fourth chapter of Sarah's journey was a poignant lesson. It was a testament to her adaptability and resilience. But more than that, it was a reminder that the essence of service lay in empathy, not in the stringent enforcement of rules. The journey from Chicago to Paris was not just a physical transition across continents but a transformation of her beliefs. The plane soared in the sky, bridging the distance between two cities, while Sarah bridged the gap between the person she was and the person she was becoming. This was not the journey she had envisioned, but it was undoubtedly the journey she needed. It was a testament to the fact that sometimes, the most unexpected detours lead us to the most profound destinations. As Sarah embarked on the next half of her journey, she was ready to face whatever turbulence lay ahead. She had learned the true meaning of her role, and she was ready to embrace it. The chapters to come were still unknown, but Sarah was ready to write them in her own way, guided by her newfound understanding. As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting its golden hue on the world below, Sarah took a moment to look out the window. The vast expanse of the ocean sparkled, its undulating surface dotted with the shadows of clouds. It was a breathtaking sight, a stark reminder of the world's incredible beauty. And yet, within the confines of this steel bird soaring above, a transformation equally as breathtaking was taking place. Sarah, having grasped the true essence of her role, was no longer the same flight attendant who had boarded the plane in Chicago. The service, her interactions with passengers, even her usual announcements felt different now. They carried an undertone of sincerity, a newfound empathy that resonated with her passengers. Throughout the cabin, people responded to her change. The cold, intimidating facade of the flight attendant had given way to a warm, approachable individual. Her smile reached her eyes, her assistance went beyond the call of duty, and her words carried a genuine concern for her passengers' comfort. Ms. Sullivan watched Sarah from her seat, her eyes sparkling with wisdom. She had been on countless flights, had interacted with hundreds of flight attendants, but she saw something unique in Sarah. There was a humbleness, a sincerity that was rare. "Sarah," she began, her voice layered with years of experience, "you have the power to touch lives, to make people's journeys memorable. Never underestimate that." Sarah nodded, taking in Ms. Sullivan's words. They solidified her new perspective, anchoring it in her heart. With newfound purpose, Sarah made her way around the cabin, serving meals, assisting passengers, and striking conversations. Each interaction, each smile, each thank you she received felt rewarding in a way it had never done before. The quiet hum of the engines underscored the serene ambience of the cabin. The passengers, comfortable and attended to, had relaxed into the journey. From mothers cradling sleeping children to businessmen tapping away on their laptops, everyone seemed at ease. Sarah felt a sense of fulfillment sweep over her. She had always enjoyed her job, but now it felt meaningful on a deeper level. She wasn't merely doing her job, she was touching lives, and that made all the difference. Halfway across the Atlantic, the announcement for the second service rang through the cabin, snapping Sarah back into action. This time, her duties didn't feel monotonous or mechanical but rather like an opportunity to connect with her passengers. As the cabin lights dimmed and the passengers settled into their seats, the impact of Sarah's transformation was visible. There was a sense of peace, a harmonious coexistence between the crew and the passengers. In her heart, Sarah knew she had crossed a crucial juncture in her career. Her job was not merely about ensuring a smooth flight but about human connections, empathy, and care. Her role had expanded, transcending the boundaries of her prescribed duties. As the chapter closed, Sarah was not the flight attendant who had asked Ms. Sullivan to return to her seat, but a compassionate custodian of her passengers' comfort. The transformation was profound, a reflection of her ability to learn and adapt. But more than anything, it was a testimony to her growth, not just as a flight attendant, but as a human being. With the promise of new beginnings, Sarah was ready for the next chapters of her journey. She had embraced change, learned invaluable lessons, and was eager to see where this path would lead her. Little did she know, the flight was far from over, and neither was her journey of self-discovery. As the second half of the flight progressed, a sense of tranquility filled the cabin. Sarah, in her new role, had transformed the atmosphere, her interactions with the passengers marked by sincere compassion. A profound change had taken place, both in her and the environment around her. However, amidst the harmony, an unforeseen incident awaited her. A passenger, a middle-aged man seated near the wing, suddenly clutched his chest in pain. His wife's panicked cries filled the cabin, jolting Sarah out of her routine checks. Rushing to the couple, Sarah swiftly assessed the situation. The man was perspiring, his face pale, clearly in distress. Without missing a beat, Sarah picked up the intercom and calmly relayed the situation to the cockpit, requesting an emergency medical kit. As she administered first aid, her training kicked in, but there was a subtle difference. This time, she wasn't just performing her duties, she felt a genuine concern for the passenger. Every soothing word she whispered, every comfort she offered, was laden with empathy. News of the medical emergency spread across the cabin. Despite the tension, there was no panic, only trust in Sarah. She had formed a bond with her passengers, and now they looked to her for reassurance. Sarah, on her part, kept her cool, tending to the man with steadfast determination. Her calm demeanor provided solace not just to the ailing passenger and his wife, but to everyone on board. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the man's pain began to subside. The color returned to his face, his breathing became regular, and his wife's anxiety gradually eased. A collective sigh of relief echoed through the cabin, with grateful smiles and nods sent in Sarah's direction. Sarah returned to her duties, but with a deep sense of fulfillment. Her ability to manage the situation effectively was a testament to her professional training. However, the compassion and empathy she exhibited were the result of her transformation. Later, as Sarah walked past Miss Sullivan, she noticed a gleam of approval in the older woman's eyes. There was no need for words, the appreciation was evident. The incident had served as a reaffirmation of Sarah's change. It was a moment of truth that showcased her capability as a flight attendant and her growth as a person. The significance of the event wasn't lost on her. It underlined the importance of empathy and emotional connection in her role, lessons she would carry forward. As the chapter ended, Sarah was left with a profound understanding of her responsibility. She was not merely an employee carrying out her duties but a vital link between the airline and its passengers, capable of providing comfort and assurance in times of distress. With newfound confidence, Sarah was eager to face the rest of the journey, ready to take on the challenges that lay ahead. Little did she know that her transformation was only beginning, and the lessons of the flight would resonate long after she had touched the ground. The aircraft soared over the Atlantic, its metallic body glistening in the afternoon sun. Inside, the quiet hum of conversations and the occasional laughter painted a picture of contentment. Despite the mid-flight scare, or perhaps because of it, a sense of camaraderie had developed. And at the heart of it was Sarah, whose transformation had redefined the flying experience for everyone on board. The aircraft continued to cruise over the vast expanse of the Atlantic, the onboard ambience a testament to Sarah's newfound approach. She moved through the cabin, attending to the passengers, her actions reflecting genuine care and compassion. Her transformation had become the heart of the journey, a beacon of empathy within the steel confines of the airplane. Suddenly, the plane hit an air pocket. The abrupt turbulence jolted the passengers, startling cries echoing through the cabin. Sarah, despite being caught off guard, managed to keep her balance, gripping a seat for support. As the seatbelt sign flashed on, she quickly reassured the passengers, her voice steady over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've hit a patch of turbulence. It's perfectly normal. Please fasten your seatbelts and remain seated." The turbulence passed as swiftly as it had come, the plane once again stable. But the incident left a ripple of tension among the passengers. Unsettled murmurs, anxious glances, a palpable unease had replaced the serene atmosphere. Realizing the shift, Sarah sprang into action. She reassured the passengers, explained the phenomenon of turbulence, even shared anecdotes of past flights. Her honesty, blended with a touch of humor, was just the antidote the cabin needed. Gradually, the tension diffused, smiles returned, and conversations resumed. The atmosphere had shifted back to its harmonious state, largely due to Sarah's efforts. She had become more than just a flight attendant, she had become a friend, a confidant, a comforting presence for the passengers. Ms. Sullivan watched the entire episode unfold from her seat, a soft smile playing on her lips. She observed Sarah, her effortless handling of the situation, the empathy she exuded. A sense of pride welled up in her. Sarah had taken her lesson to heart and had transformed it into a beautiful reality. As the flight approached its final leg, a feeling of gratitude swept over Sarah. The day's events, her encounters, the crises, had all added layers to her understanding of her role. She had experienced firsthand the impact of empathy, of genuine care, of being more than just an employee performing her duties. The lessons she had learned from Ms. Sullivan had unraveled a different dimension of her job. It was no longer about serving meals or helping with luggage, it was about connecting with people, about understanding their needs and fears, and providing comfort and assurance. As the chapter drew to a close, Sarah stood tall, not just as a flight attendant, but as a custodian of human connections, a beacon of compassion and understanding. She had realized the essence of her job, the fundamental human connection that lay at its core. The plane began its descent, a sense of anticipation filling the cabin. The journey had been an unexpected voyage of self-discovery for Sarah, a testament to her ability to learn, adapt, and transform. As the wheels touched the tarmac, she knew that she had emerged from the journey stronger and wiser, a beacon of compassion ready to touch more lives. As she prepared to bid her passengers farewell, she felt a wave of satisfaction wash over her. She had not only made the flight comfortable but also memorable for her passengers. And in doing so, she had not just done her job, but had enriched it with her humanity. Little did she know, her journey was far from over. The lessons of this flight would continue to resonate, guiding her in her future endeavors. As the plane taxied on the runway, Sarah could feel a mix of emotions brewing within her. Pride in her transformation, gratitude for the invaluable lesson, and a newfound confidence for her role. The journey, both literally and metaphorically, had come to an end, but it was the beginning of a new chapter in Sarah's life. Once the aircraft had come to a complete halt, Sarah began the disembarkation process. She wished each passenger farewell, their responses a mix of gratitude and admiration. Among them, the elderly couple thanked her profusely for her help, their appreciation mirroring the sentiment of all the passengers. As Ms. Sullivan prepared to leave, she beckoned Sarah. "My dear, you have been a shining star in this journey," she praised, her voice full of warmth. "Not just for your outstanding service, but for your kind heart and your willingness to learn. Keep it up." Sarah nodded, her eyes welling up with grateful tears. She hugged the elderly woman, thanking her for the lesson that had sparked her transformation. After the passengers had disembarked, Sarah stood alone in the now empty cabin. The journey had come full circle, bringing her back to where it all began. However, she was not the same person who had started the journey. She had evolved, her perspective broadened, her approach to her job and to life fundamentally changed. As Sarah stepped off the plane, she took a moment to breathe in the new dawn. The lesson from the flight had given her a new sense of purpose. She was determined to incorporate her newfound empathy and understanding into every aspect of her life, personal and professional. Meanwhile, the incident involving Sarah and Ms. Sullivan echoed in the upper echelons of the airline company. Impressed by Sarah's transformation and Ms. Sullivan's lesson, the company decided to implement a new training program focused on empathy and emotional intelligence. It would serve to enhance the interpersonal skills of their crew, ensuring a more compassionate and understanding service to their passengers. Sarah was ecstatic when she heard the news. Her journey, her transformation had sparked a change in the airline's approach to service. It was a testament to the power of empathy and a validation of her transformation. As the final chapter came to a close, Sarah, the flight attendant, had become a symbol of compassion, an embodiment of the change that Ms. Sullivan had hoped to inspire. Her journey had resonated far beyond the confines of the aircraft, heralding a new era in the airline's service and her own life. In the end, the flight was not just a trip across the Atlantic. It was a transformative journey for Sarah and, in a broader sense, for the airline company. It showcased the power of empathy and compassion in fostering a better service and a stronger connection with passengers. The lessons of this journey will continue to resonate, shaping the service of the airline and the lives of its crew in the years to come. Did you like this story? Comment below what you think and subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.